Okay, it's day 179. This is part two. And yesterday, a relative of mine outed Deep Uranium with his real name and looked up the fact that he had been an FBI informant. I had later had a talk with Deep Uranium, and he told me, yes, he had been involved in several different occasions, more than five occasions where he had been an FBI informant, going all the way back to a militia case in West Virginia in 1998, all the way up to at least 2004. And he had said recently he had been involved in other projects. And I never completely knew the background of Deep Uranium, but he talks and is very familiar with these Navy installations. He's very he is a pilot. He's very familiar with these different island landing strips. He's talked to me frequently. I can't count how many times about landing strips and remote locations and flying and so forth. So I'm pretty sure that he has been a contractor for the Navy Intel. As a matter of fact, I know he has in the pilot role. That's how he told me about Glenview Airport. That's how he told me about Lake Pontchartrain or Pontchartrain, however you say it, in Louisiana. That's how he told me about kind of all these different Navy installations around the world, Hawaii, different weapons testing areas, Sandia Labs, and so forth. Now, he could be just an incredibly quick study and not actually have those skills and completely fooled me. But in this case, it really doesn't make any difference. And one of the things we'd always talked about was this idea of Seth Rich and what Seth Rich's role was and what were the PANDAs. Now, if you don't remember the PANDAs, there was a couple of emails that went around the DNC talking about an embarrassment of pandas. And now pandas, when they're all little cubs together in a bunch, they're called an embarrassment. And you can see that down here. A group of pandas is called an embarrassment. And here's the famous Andrew Theriault. He's the big data analyst in Boston for I believe the state of Massachusetts, but he was working at the DNC. So there's a lot of Seth Rich stuff that's went around these different emails he supposedly used to exfiltrate data to WikiLeaks, pandas for progress, pandas this, pandas that, etc. So the typical thinking on this is he used several different emails to exfiltrate data over time to WikiLeaks, and then he was killed, by somebody in the DNC supposedly. But there was a separate scenario we discussed, which was what if he was on a programming team? Since his brother is on a programming team at Northrop Grumman, his brother is very involved with Northrop Grumman as far as writing applications for the Navy. Maybe the pandas were something else to do with the Navy, which led us to this thinking here, which is here's the U.S. Navy's PANDA technology is used to detect deviant ships. Well, if you go with the idea that Seth Rich was involved with Warren Buffett and involved in resources for the future, involved with the idea of kind of the Navy running this kind of drayage business for weapons for drugs, weapons for drugs, weapons for drugs, then it may make some sense that this team embedded, this PANDA team was actually embedded with inside the DNC in a way that would maybe negotiate or secure contracts, Navy and other DoD contracts as a way of catalyzing donations to the DNC. So it could be laundered through the DNC, and then this group of intelligence guys basically embedded in the DNC would be that group. Now, what would you call that group? Would you call it U.S. Navy PANDA Group inside the DNC, or would you come up with an innocuous name like the MIS department? We still don't have any of those connections because we don't have Seth Rich's metadata. We don't have his phone. We don't have any of the video cameras. We don't have any of the paperwork trail at the hospital. We don't have any his laptop. So, or the emails as of yet. But here's Northrop Grumman demonstrating their capability for maritime data awareness. Again, I talked to Deep Florida. He said this was the key application they used for detecting drug running. Certain ships were given the go-ahead, do not touch, as a matter of fact, escort them to dock. Of course, our Alex up in Washington, D.C., who you all met, worked on this project for SAIC. We know that we have several individuals at SAIC that work with Bill Binney, who said this was a cow that could be milked for years after 9/11. So we have all that kind of, we have pointers and breadcrumbs leading us in this direction. So if it was me and I wanted to infiltrate, bring folks in to basically be my eyes and ears for Navy contracts, especially like VA contracts or other type of food and drug type contracts, I would infiltrate this organization, which is the CNIC, which is the Commander of Navy Installations, okay, in around the world. You can see their map around the world here. And I'll just quickly show you their regions here in the United States. This was the guy I met with in our lobby who was kind of talking to me about dog teams in the Navy Reserve. Here are the different regions, and they line up pretty well with the VA regions. Not exactly, but they line up fairly well with the VA regions. Again, if you're trying to infiltrate quarter weight or half weight drugs, if you're trying to get arms contracts that go along with it, launder them through the DNC, you would want to have people in these eyes and ears in these different locations. I then mapped the Kennedy School, which is in Fort Bragg, and also obviously you can see the Kennedy School for Special Warfare. This is McDuff's famous group, is in North Carolina. And if you expand their map out a little bit, you can see that there's this extra little location. Now, it's interesting that Deep Uranium has, I believe, a home out near Asheville, North Carolina, and there's a big airstrip right there. And I thought, oh my, I wonder if that's his airstrip. But anyway, here's just basically kind of a network, if you will, that you could exploit. So this is the Army, this is the Green Network, right? This is the Navy, this is the Blue Network, and you could just basically put your operatives in these different positions through these different, SEIU janitors, if you will, to get the inside line on when do we build the new VA hospital, et cetera. And then you would create an organization, something like this, which is basically I'm not going to say brilliant in this case, which I've associated with the ones before, but I'm just taking one at random. This one's called Millennium, and it mainly caters to DoD for cyber hacking and so forth. This is where I think the Inspector General comes in, is if you have teams going around to do cyber assessments, which is this kind of company does, you look at their practice areas, cyber solutions is their big deal. You're basically, able to get on the backbone, which is better than being in the SAIU janitor. Now you're on the backbone of all these different agencies, and now you can really bring in the people you want to bring in if you are exfiltrating terabytes of data to Pakistan, if you are doing hundreds of suspicious activity reports to Pakistan. So all I'm saying is, even though yesterday, Deep Uranium is audited as an FBI informant, as a government asset, probably CIA Navy pilot, it doesn't really matter. You can still use the information he's given me along the way about the potential meanings of these emails. A group of pandas has called an embarrassment, right? That we can talk about PANDA and what sense that may be actually a throw to talk about the actual bear and actually look at the technology, which would be critical if you wanted to identify, if you had a guns for drugs business going, and just look at the news wires that support that. Again, one line of inquiry, when we actually get the DNC servers, when we actually get the report, the Grafenstein report from Congress, and see actually what was exfiltrated to Pakistan and the suspicious activity transfers, the credit union report for the hacking there, the CDW report. We get all those reports, the various Capitol Police reports, then we'll be able to see if these working theories are valid.